I thought it was just another regular stay. But by the time I left, I was never the same. I stayed in a room with a horrifying past, and something followed me home. Here's why no one should ever book room 322. I had been traveling for hours, exhausted from meetings and desperate for rest. The hotel was old but well-maintained, nestled in a quiet part of town. It had that classic Victorian charm, grand chandeliers, polished mahogany floors, and a front desk receptionist who greeted me with a warm but strangely knowing smile. "Ah, Mr. Carter," she said, scanning my reservation. "You'll be staying in room 322. As she handed me the key, I noticed a flicker of hesitation in her expression. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She shook her head, forcing a smile. "No, sir. Enjoy your stay." Her voice was tight, almost rehearsed. The elevator ride up was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that made my ears ring. When I stepped into room 322, an odd chill greeted me. The air smelled slightly stale, like old books left in an attic for too long. The wallpaper was peeling in places, revealing older layers beneath. Then I saw it, a dark stain near the bed, too faded to tell if it was wine or something else. I set my suitcase down. The lights flickered. I brushed it off. Old wiring, probably. But then, just as I turned to unpack, something caught my eye. The mirror. A shadow, just behind me. I spun around. Nothing was there. My chest tightened. Maybe I was just overtired? A sound woke me. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, pacing right outside my door. I held my breath, checked the peephole. Nothing. Then whispering, soft, indistinct. Right inside the room, my skin prickled, my pulse pounded. I turned on every light, throwing open the bathroom door, the closet. Nothing. Then the bathroom door creaked open by itself. I couldn't sleep. I needed answers. I searched the hotel's history online, and my blood ran cold. Room 322. A murder. A man, throat slit from ear to ear. The killer, never caught. Guests reported horrifying things, waking up with bruises, seeing shadows, hearing their name whispered at night. I slammed the laptop shut. Then, the room phone rang. I hesitated, picked it up. Hello? Static. Then a raspy, "You shouldn't be here." I froze. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my suitcase. I was leaving. But the mirror, my reflection, it smiled. And then it stepped forward. The air turned ice cold. My breath fogged, my limbs locked. The lights flickered, and in the dim flashes I saw him. A gaunt figure, black, sunken eyes, grinning, blood dripping from his neck. He stood inches away from me. Then, darkness. Something wrapped around my throat, tight, crushing. I gasped, kicking, struggling. An inhuman whisper curled into my ear, "Join me." My vision blurred, the pressure squeezed. My body jerked. Then, bang! The lights flared. The grip loosened. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. The door to my room slammed open on its own. I don't remember running. Suddenly, I was in the lobby, panting, trembling. The receptionist didn't even look surprised. "Room 322? She asked softly. I could only nod. She sighed. Slid a ledger toward me. Dozens of names, next to many of them, one word. "Missing." "Why do you still rent that room?" I demanded. Her lips trembled. "We try not to, but it chooses." I checked out that night, sped away from that hotel, but when I got home, something felt wrong. My bedroom mirror was fogged over, a handprint pressed against the glass from the inside. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I hesitated, picked up, a raspy breath. Then, "You never left." A shadow moved behind me in the mirror. It was supposed to be a simple getaway, but it turned into a nightmare no one could explain. When I checked into the hotel, I had no idea I'd be investigating a terrifying disappearance. The plan was simple: a weekend getaway with friends. We had been stressed. Work, life, the mundane routines that kept us tied down. So, when Adam suggested a historic hotel in the middle of nowhere, we jumped at the chance. The Blackwood Inn had a reputation. It was beautiful yet eerie, standing at the edge of a dense forest. Built in the late 1800s, its past was riddled with ghost stories and urban legends. Some said it was cursed. Others called it haunted. We dismissed it as nothing more than rumors. We arrived late in the afternoon. The hotel was old but well-maintained, its Gothic architecture looming over us like a shadow. A strange, musty scent lingered in the air. The receptionist, a frail woman with hollow eyes, gave us an unsettling smile. "Rooms 407 and 408, she said, sliding the keys across the desk. "Enjoy your stay." Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. I shook it off. It's just an old building with history. Nothing more, right? That night, we explored the hotel, taking in its antique decor and dimly lit hallways. Adam was particularly fascinated by the paintings lining the corridors, portraits of long-dead guests, their eyes following us as we passed. "Creepy, right?" he chuckled. "I bet this place has all kinds of secrets." By midnight, we were exhausted and decided to turn in. Adam had a room to himself, room 407, while I shared 408 with our friend Jake. The next morning, something was off. Adam, who was always the first to wake, hadn't shown up for breakfast. His phone? Straight to voicemail. Concerned, we knocked on his door. No response. After a few minutes, the hotel manager arrived with a key. The door creaked open. Adam's bed was perfectly made, his belongings untouched. But Adam? Gone. The window was locked from the inside. The door showed no signs of forced entry. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. Under his pillow, we found a note. "Do not look for me. It won't let me leave." Panic set in. We called the police, but they found no evidence of a struggle. Security footage showed Adam entering his room, but never leaving. The hotel staff? Unfazed. "People go missing all the time," the manager said, casually. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air felt thicker, suffocating. I kept hearing whispers, faint murmurs coming from the vents. At 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of tapping. Soft, deliberate, coming from the closet. My heart hammered in my chest. Slowly, I reached for the handle. Chushi, pulled it open. Nothing. I let out a breath. Maybe I was just imagining. Then I turned toward the mirror, and I saw him, Adam. His reflection stood behind me, mouth open in a silent scream. I spun around. The room was empty. Desperate for answers, I started digging into the hotel's history. Guests disappearing over the decades, a sealed-off wing no one spoke about. Jake and I bribed a janitor to let us into the restricted area. The hallway was dust-covered, abandoned for years. Doors stood ajar, revealing rooms frozen in time, as if their occupants had vanished mid-stay. At the end of the hall, we found a door. Inside, the walls were covered in scratch marks, the air thick with decay. And in the center of the room, Adam. His body lay motionless, his skin pale, his eyes wide with horror. His mouth twisted in a silent scream, but the most horrifying part, he had been dead for days. Yet, we had seen him. Just last night, we ran. But the hotel wasn't letting us go. The hallways twisted, shifted, shadows moved, whispering, watching. We reached the lobby, gasping for breath. But the receptionist, she just stood there, smiling. "You shouldn't have looked for him," she said. The walls groaned. The floor beneath us breathed. I turned to run. My vision blurred. My limbs felt heavy. The last thing I saw was Adam's reflection in the hotel's grand mirror, his hollow eyes staring at me. Then, darkness. I woke up in room 407. My belongings? Untouched. The note under my pillow? It wasn't Adam's handwriting. It was mine. "Do not look for me. It won't let me leave." Hotels are supposed to be temporary stops, places you check into and leave without a second thought. But some guests, they never leave. I thought I was just passing through, but what I experienced in that room will haunt me forever. The town was a dot on the map, barely visible. I hadn't planned to stop, but exhaustion weighed down my eyelids, and the next motel was miles away. My GPS led me down an isolated road where a faded neon sign flickered against the night. The Holloway Inn. Stepping inside, the air felt stale. The old carpet absorbed every footstep, and the dim chandelier above cast eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. The front desk clerk barely looked up when I rang the bell. "You traveling alone?" His voice was almost a whisper. I hesitated. "Yeah, just passing through." His fingers hovered over the check-in book before scribbling something. Room 209. He slid a tarnished key across the counter. As I turned to leave, he added, "If you hear anything strange tonight, don't open your door." My room was exactly what you'd expect in an old hotel. Outdated furniture, floral wallpaper curling at the edges, a musty scent of forgotten time. I showered, let the warm water wash away my fatigue, then crawled into bed. Silence settled over the room. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound came from the room next door, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I waited. Nothing. Maybe just my imagination? Knock, knock, knock. This time I got up, pressing my ear to the wall. I could hear faint breathing. Someone was in there. I stepped into the hallway, expecting to see light under the door of room 211, but there was nothing, just darkness. I knocked. "Hello? Everything okay?" No answer. I went downstairs. The clerk was still there, staring at the wall behind the counter. "Hey, do you know who's in 211? I keep hearing knocking." His eyes flicked up. "That room's been empty for years." My stomach dropped. "No, I heard something." He sighed. "You should get some sleep." I went back to my room, but sleep never came. At around 3 a.m., I woke up gasping. My room was freezing, my breath visible in the air. The knocking had stopped, replaced by something worse. A faint whispering. It was coming from the vent connecting my room to 211. I crept closer, pressing my ear against the grate. A woman's voice. "Help me." My body turned to ice. The voice was fragile, desperate, as if someone was trapped just beyond the thin metal barrier. "Please, don't let him find me." My hand shot to my phone. I turned on the flashlight and angled it toward the vent. Dust swirled, but nothing else. I reached out, fingers grazing the cold metal. A shadow darted across the vent from the other side. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. Then, the door to room 211 creaked open. I had 2 choices: ignore it or see for myself. Every horror movie told me to stay in my bed, but something in me needed to know. I stepped into the hallway. Room 211's door was slightly ajar, revealing nothing but blackness inside. I swallowed hard and pushed it open. The room was wrong, freezing. A layer of dust coated everything, untouched for years. A single chair sat in the center, facing the wall, and on the bed, a woman's silhouette. Her head turned slowly, and I caught a glimpse of her face. Hollow eyes, lips parted as if she'd been screaming for years but had run out of sound. Her mouth moved. "Run." Then, behind me, a cold breath on my neck. I spun around, but no one was there. The room started shifting. The walls seemed to pulse, closing in. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. I stumbled back, feeling unseen fingers claw at my skin. The door slammed shut. I banged on it, screaming, "Let me out, please!" Then, as suddenly as it had locked, it burst open. The hotel clerk stood there, face pale. "Get out!" I didn't ask questions. I ran. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away. When I finally pulled over, my hands were shaking too hard to grip the wheel. I grabbed my phone and searched for the Holloway Inn. A news article from 1978 popped up. "Woman found dead in Holloway Inn, room 211. Suspect never caught." The photo of the victim made my stomach drop. It was her. The woman from the bed, and the suspect. The hotel clerk. I looked up at my rearview mirror, expecting to see nothing but the open road behind me. But there, in the back seat, a shadowed figure sat, grinning in the darkness. "Drive,"